Hello, I'm Jeannine J., owner and head instructor at Canine Complex and Friends.
I'm Crystal Gerovac, owner of Think Dog Services, and I'm also an instructor here at Canine Complex and Friends.
We are here today to talk to you about some of the things we do at Canine Complex and Friends, how our method of training is new and unique and very cutting edge.
So we're going to talk about what we do here, and one of the things we do involves dog-initiated interactions. And what is that, Jeannine?
Well, I will tell you.
Okay.
Dog-initiated interactions is a way of communicating and interacting with your dog that allows your dog to take the first step and show you how they're feeling about a given circumstance, a given scenario, or a given trigger. If your dog is worried or reactive or has trouble with people or dogs or whatever the trigger is, whether it's a new place or anything that they haven't met, dog-initiated interactions will help you to be able to understand what your dog is saying in that situation and give you the tools that you need to listen to your dog as they tell you how they are feeling about that situation and when they need help dealing with the situation and possibly escaping from it.
Okay. So that makes sense to me. We do a lot of stuff in the fearful class, like when people try to approach my dogs, they absolutely can't handle it. So we try to have the dog tell us what she can do to initiate that.
Exactly. That's exactly what we are doing. We're giving the dog agency to decide whether they can approach something that may be scary to them or whether that scary trigger can approach them. And they are allowed to communicate through their body language and through the understanding of the exercises we teach them. They are allowed to tell us what they are able to handle. And also when we need to help them handle the situations that they are presented with. And that's a very, very important part of helping our dogs when they can't deal anymore and they need us to help them get out of a situation or for us to take control.
Okay.
So something else we wanted to talk about is some fallacies that all of you have probably heard, some myths, old wives' tales about things about dogs that we think are true but might not be. You want to go first?
Sure. So one of them, I used to get approached a lot when I was out with my dogs. Oh, they're so cute. Can I come and pet them? No. Not every dog is here on planet Earth, so you can pet them. That's a myth. Or, that's true, not a myth. We don't want to go up to strange dogs we don't know. It can make them very, very uncomfortable. Living with a house full of fearful dogs and one reactive dog, I don't want anyone coming into our personal space bubble. It can be very large, so keep away. I put signs on my dogs, leash wraps that say need space. Most people don't read them, so I'm very polite and say, nope, my dogs really are worried about people and they do not want to be touched. Thank you, and kind of move away. Even though the dog is backing up, hands reaching, nope, hands off. So it's not very appropriate to just go up to anyone's dog and immediately come right in and try to pet them. Not appropriate.
It makes me think about what would happen if somebody on the street came up and wanted to touch your child.
Yeah.
And that would be potentially something you'd call the police for. That'd be very creepy. We wouldn't like that.
No.
Dogs require the same sort of space and respect. In fact, I would venture to say most dogs don't like to be petted by people they do not know. And we have a little test that we use in class to help determine if a dog wants to be touched. We work with a lot of fearful and reactive dogs and overly aroused dogs, even aggressive dogs. And it's clear that a lot of those dogs do not want to be touched, but what about those seemingly normal average dogs that are in just regular classes? Well, we do a consent test, and that basically means go up and scratch your dog for a second, or whoever wants to touch them, move your hand away, and if the dog comes back to ask for more, then that's okay to touch. But if the dog moves away or doesn't come to your hand, then they probably really don't want you to touch them. Again, I've had a lot of people come to me asking me to help make their dog able to be touched by other people because they're so pretty and people just want to touch them. But again, I would say a huge percentage of dogs, probably I would venture, I don't have research to show this, but to back this up, but yet I would say that probably 80% of dogs don't want to be touched as much as we think they do.
So what about dogs that sniff a lot? A lot of people don't like that when they're on walks.
And that's a very good point too. Dogs, 40% of a dog's brain is dedicated to their nose. That is the main scent they experience the world with. They cannot experience the world clearly and fully without constantly using their nose. It cannot happen. It is fine for dogs to sniff, and a lot of times, now not to say obedience training or whatever is not a very good thing to do, but a lot of times we require too much focus from our dogs. We require our dogs to look at us constantly. We don't want our dogs to be sniffing. We want the walk to be fast. We don't want to give the dogs time to experience their world. Not only is that stressful to the dog, but it also can create issues in terms of how the dog reacts. So the dog, we start to get dogs that are aggressive, fearful, scared, reactive, any of those things, because they just don't know how to, they're not given the opportunity to process, to socially process the world around them and the things that enter into their spaces. Letting them sniff gives them the opportunity to do that. And how about, do you want to talk about the statement, it's not the dog, it's how they were raised?
Sure. So a lot of people think that's true. The genetics play a big portion in how your dog may act. So some dogs may be naturally, aggressive. And a lot of people might think, well, it doesn't matter, it's how he's raised. That's not always the case. We can do everything correct and give a lot of training, and sometimes we just miss proper social cues. Ritualized aggression, which is a form of not wanting at all to be aggressive, and things can escalate very fast if we're not keen on that and know what we're looking for. But again, you can do everything right, and something can just be in their genes that you have no control over.
Well, what kind of things help to make a particular, like looking at breeds? Herding dogs, we all know that herding dogs like to herd things.
Yes.
We all know that terriers like to get rats,
Yes.
and things like that. We know that retrievers like to bring balls back, or at least go get them.
Yeah.
What about some of the dogs that were bred for guardian work or protection work, or even, though it's horrible to think that dogs were bred for this, blood sport? And a lot of breeds have been used for those over generations. What things would go into making a potential issue like that?
So genetics is a big portion of what we get in a dog. And sometimes we don't know if we have a rescue dog or a dog we thought was one breed, but we do the DNA and we see it's actually another breed. Those things do matter. They can tell you a lot about what kind of dog you may have, or things that you may see in that dog, and explained through the genetics. So it's not always that dog is going to be aggressive, say if it's a bully mix or a bully breed, but it very well could be. Just a quick example. I have a herding dog who likes to nip my feet. I wouldn't say she's anywhere near aggressive, but if I'm not doing what she wants me to do, she tends to grab me and nip me.
Very typical of a herding dog. Herding dogs tend to want to do that. They tend to want to nip at feet, ankles, clothes, like pant legs. It's a typical default behavior shown from a herding dog. Lots of dogs, lots of breeds or types of breeds have been bred to be potentially dog aggressive, containing full prey sequences in their genetic makeup, and these things can be hardwired in their brains. So no matter how much training you do, there is the potential that a particular type or breed of dog may just simply not be able to be trained or taught or helped to act in a way other than what they were bred to do. The story about the person who came in with a Husky Labrador mix and was complaining that the dog was constantly pulling. Well, Huskies are bred to pull. That's probably something that's going to take a lot of work to address, and probably something to think about before you purchase a dog.
I have a good example. A friend of mine has, we believe, a miniature pinscher mix. If the dog is on her lap, nobody can approach her, and she gets really mad about it. I've even seen her yell at the dog, "Stop that," because he'll growl. And I've very politely said, "Don't correct your dog for growling. He was bred to be in the lap.
A lap dog, and to
protecting her." So he's allowed to do that, communicating, "Please back away. I'm on my human's lap, and we don't want you coming near. I don't want you coming near." But she gets very upset about it. So it's just in his genes.
And again, that's a place where we talk about listening to our dogs, but also helping them through situations. So that would be a situation where the dog would need help. We don't want the dog to have to growl and snap. We want the individual who owns the dog to help that dog before somebody pushes too hard and causes the dog to become stressed.
Because she didn't raise him to do that. It's naturally what he does.
And one of my all-time favorites, is the concept of fur babies.
Oh, fur babies.
Yes. Everybody has a fur baby. We all love our dogs, but you need to remember that these are, once they hit social and sexual maturity at about somewhere between say 9 months and 2 years of age, they are adult animals. They aren't babies. They are dogs that dogs should be walking on the ground, treated like adult animals, allowed to act like adult animals, and it's just a thought that it's a concept that bothers a lot of people, but there are so many people that are just believe that their animals are their children. And it becomes very stressful for an adult animal to constantly have to live in a state of being treated like a baby. They don't like it. It can create a lot of anxiety for them, and it takes away a lot of their agency and their ability to live their life as an adult animal on their own.
So does that mean like I shouldn't give my dog a nice warm bed and a blanket and stuff?
Oh, absolutely not. Your dog deserves to have, the comforts of living in a home.
Okay.
Your dog deserves all of that, but adult dogs should probably walk on the ground unless it's unsafe for them. Dogs don't necessarily like wearing lots of different clothes. Some might, and that's okay, but it's not a part of being a dog that they need to be dressed in little clothes and outfits, and it's just, if your dog likes it, it's okay to do, but make sure your dog likes it. and it isn't acting stressed because it doesn't feel it has a choice to do something different. It doesn't feel it has a choice to say no, that this is uncomfortable for me. Which also brings us to the idea of how many of you out there have dogs that like to pull when they see a person or a dog, and when they get to that person or dog, they're jumping on them all over. They're jumping and clawing and just acting so excited. And you have said about this that my dog is just so happy and just loves to see new people. Do you think that's true?
No.
Exactly. Those very often, it doesn't mean that those dogs are not do not like people or other dogs, but what it means is that they are in a situation where they are so over threshold that they cannot control their approach. Imagine being in a world where every time you saw another person that you became immediately so over the top with excitement to go see them that you could not control yourself. I wouldn't like to be like that. I like to be able to be calm and relaxed and controlled.
Yeah, that sounds very stressful.
So we have found when we let the dog make the choice to approach another dog and to say, or person, and to say, no, I really am good being 5 feet away from you. I really don't want to be touched by you. That these dogs will stop and not jump. They won't attempt to jump. They won't attempt to pull. They'll sit there when they're being listened to.
Yeah. I just thought of one more.
What?
Dogs are pack animals is something I hear a lot. And there's a hierarchy in dominance and submissiveness in dogs. Is that true?
Well, that's a really difficult question as to whether that's true or not. Dogs are not really pack animals. They are solitary scavengers. They're not hunters. They don't hunt in a pack. They live in social groups, not necessarily familial, but they live in social groups. So they will have friends, and they do have hierarchies, but how those hierarchies are in existence, it's not really about dominance and submission. Dominance is not a personality trait. Dominance is about an interaction between one and another dog, and it is always about competition for resources. So that means if a dog, if it's feeding time or whatever, and there's like if dogs living in free range near garbage dumps around people's trash, which is the typical place dogs evolved over time. When the food gets there, when the garbage is taken out, whenever the garbage trucks come to the dump or whatever, the dogs will, whatever dog tends to get in first to eat is most likely being the dominant dog in that situation. Dominance is also very fluid. It can change between one dog and another dog. It's usually not the aggressive dog. That's where we see you mentioned ritualized behavior or ritualized aggression. You can see that there, and ritualized aggression is actually meant to keep true aggression down rather than actually trying to cause fights. And so I don't think we have enough research on dogs to know exactly what's going on in terms of dominance and submission, but it certainly isn't what we tend to hear by a lot of people and dog owners and dog trainers. It certainly isn't about a dog making some snarky noise at another dog, or baring its teeth, or starting a fight, or humping another dog. All those things are not necessarily have anything to do with being dominant and submissive. Crystal,
Yep.
what about growling and baring the teeth?
Oh.
Does that mean your dog is aggressive?
No, it does not. But I used to think it did. I used to think it did.
What does it mean?
So that's a warning. That's talking and communicating. So if my dog lifts her lips, shows her teeth, I'm gonna back up. If my dog growls at me, I'm gonna, sorry, back up. So that's her communicating with me that something is making her uncomfortable, whether it's me coming toward her, the other dog walking by and they see each other maybe one has a bone, she lifts her lip, growls a little bit, back off. Maybe that's a little bit of resource guarding in itself, but I'm uncomfortable with you being right there. So we want to listen to those things and never correct those. If we correct them and stop them, we may as well have a house full of smoke alarms with 0 batteries. That's communication, right? It's very good for the dogs. Those are ritualized aggression that we see, communication, as we said before. I really don't want to be aggressive, so please back up. Now, if you're walking up to a dog, oh, he's so cute, can I pet him? And you hear him growling, and maybe the owner says, stop that, back way up. It's okay, he's just talking, I'm out of here. So respect that dog's wishes to please don't come any closer.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're going to end for now. We're going to have a little break, and then we'll come back and talk to you more about body language, understanding your dog, letting them know you're listening. This is going to be the fun part because we'll have some videos of some actual dogs that we have worked with.